Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex Stephenson. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. The Mortarpod is a weekly video podcast where I present to you a custom magic set based on movies, TV shows, books, all sorts of entertainment from the past. And it's been going over really well. The Reddit community gets involved with it, and they sort of help me hash out some of the ideas that I've brought forth and make sure that they work okay. This week's a fun little comedy. Just last week of December here, so just getting over the Christmas celebrations and all of that. And didn't do any Christmas-themed movies this month, but this is definitely a comedy movie that, had a big cult following, and it was Mike Judge, the Beavis and Butthead creator, so he's always, been appreciated for how awesome his entertainment is. So this is no exception. We've got Office Space. Now, Office Space was, I believe, based on a cartoon little mini-series they had on Saturday Night Live, but it spun off into a movie, and then it turned out to be just a really funny movie with a big cult following. So let's jump right into it. We've got Peter Gibbons, played by Ron Livingston, the main character of the movie. So Peter's story in Office Space is that he hates his job, he hates his work, he works with a bunch of coworkers who also hate their jobs, and he ends up going to a hypnotist to, I guess, try and start loving his job because he's just so miserable. But what ends up happening is the hypnotist puts him in a state where he does love everything, but then the hypnotist keels over and dies. So Peter's left in this state of happiness, but he understands that he basically just has to cut ties with his job because he hates it so much. So I wanted to sort of demonstrate his transformation within his card. So Peter Gibbons is a white and a blue for a 2/2 legendary human mythic creature. He has the mechanic of this set, which is Drudgery. And Drudgery is, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if you played no cards this turn. Now, keep in mind, if you play any of these guys with Drudgery, you don't get to draw a card at that turn. And then if you play a land during your turn, remember, played no cards indicates you can't even play lands, in addition to not being able to play spells. So in order to draw the card at the beginning of your end step, no lands, no spells during your turn. But some people in the community, it seems like most of them still thought this was an overpowered ability. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. It's tough for me to say that it would be overpowered. If you're not playing any creatures or sorceries or anything, you can still play like flash creatures on your opponent's turn and maybe burn spells or something like that. But not playing lands, I don't know, that's quite the setback, especially early on. And then Peter Gibbons' other ability besides Drudgery is you pay a white and a blue and you tap him. He loses this ability and Drudgery, and then he gets a +1/+1 counter, and he gains Hexproof and Lifelink. So ideally, you play him on turn 2, turn 3, you pass the turn without playing a land, you draw a card at your end step, and then on their turn, use his activated ability, and he becomes a 3/3 Hexproof Lifelink blocker, which is pretty good, I think. Or maybe he's already attacked, in which case he's still pretty good. So next we have Michael Bolton, and not the singer Michael Bolton, but yes, the character from the movie is named Michael Bolton, and they bring that joke up a few times. So he is a blue and a red for a 1/2 legendary human creature. He also has Drudgery, and he has an activated ability, red tap Destroy target artifact with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in your hand. And then Michael Bolton deals damage to you equal to that card's converted mana cost. So, a couple restrictions, but considering it's a, hard destruction spell for artifacts, I feel like probably needs to be justified. That ability is, of course, relating to the scene in the movie where Peter steals the fax machine, and it's him and Michael and Samir just bashing it in a field to Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster. So, very cool scene, very iconic scene from that movie. And I think the ability indicates it pretty well because he ends up getting on the ground and punching it a few times, which was sort of supposed to be why he's dealing damage to you. Next we have Samir Nainajar. I know how to pronounce his last name because he says it in the movie. But he is 2 colorless, a white and a blue for a 2/4 mythic human creature. He also has drudgery, and he has whenever you draw a card, gain 1 life. So I wanted it to be like an opposite of Underworld Dreams. I think he's pretty awesome. His flavor text is, well, if I had $1 million, I would invest half of it in mutual funds and give the rest of it to my friend Sahib in securities. So Michael had brought up some, if you had $1 million, what job would you want thing? And Samir sort of missed the point on that. But I felt like Samir was very good with money in that movie, which is why I wanted him to be able to have you gain life whenever you draw a card. Next we have Initech the Mind Numbing. Now this Initech is the name of the company where all of the employees work at. So this is a legendary land, a mythic. It taps for a colorless, or you can pay 7 and tap it. Creatures you control gain drudgery until end of turn. So an ability you have to use on your turn. And but if you do, draw a card for each creature you control at the end of your turn, which should definitely be very strong. So this card, I don't know. I still refuse to accept that drudgery is a broken ability, but if somebody can prove me wrong, so be it. I think Initech the Mind Numbing would be a cool card, though, and flavorfully, I think it evokes what I wanted it to. Anybody who's in there is, doing drudgery, doing menial, boring work. Next, we have Bill Lumberg, probably the most popular character from the movie, or Milton, one or the other. But Bill Lumberg is 1 colorless, a blue, and a black for a 2/3 Intimidate creature. He's also a mythic legendary human. Whenever a creature blocks or becomes blocked by Bill Lumberg, that creature loses all abilities and becomes a white coward with base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. And then his flavor text is, of course, I'm going to need you to go ahead and come in tomorrow. Oh yeah, I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday too, okay? So he's a real weekend ruining boss. And I think the ability indicates perfectly what's going on. He is an intimidating guy. Because no one wants to talk to him because he always asks them to do more work. And then in addition to that, Peter has a couple encounters with him early on, and he becomes a white coward over it, which I thought worked perfectly. So next we have Milton Wadhams, and this is a really awesome performance. And Milton, I believe, was the cartoon character, main character from the Office Space cartoon on the SNL series. So Milton Wadhams is 2 colorless, a blue, and a red for a 1/4 mythic human legend. He also has drudgery, and he has sacrifice Milton Wadhams, destroy target non-basic land. Milton Wadhams deals 2 damage to that land's controller. Okay, but I can set the building on fire, is the flavor quote. And that's supposed to be why he can sack and destroy non-basics. He ends up burning down Initech and basically saving Peter, Samir, and Michael from some really hardcore litigation. Next we have Joanna from Tchotchkes, and this is played by Jennifer Aniston, of course. Very, very beautiful in this movie. And she works, Tchotchkes is the name of the restaurant that she works at. And she's 1 and 2 white for a 1/4 rare human legend. She has white and tap, put a flare counter on Joanna from Tchotchkes. And then she has remove a flare counter from Joanna from Tchotchkes, prevent all damage that would be dealt to target creature from a color of your choice this turn. So Joanna from Tchotchkes, In the movie, Joanna has some encounters at with her boss about the amount of flair she's wearing, and flair in this instance being little buttons that is on her uniform at work, and the boss is basically telling her she doesn't have enough, or she has the bare minimum, which disappoints him. So, and it's funny enough, oddly enough, her boss is played by Mike Judge, the creator. So, definitely, if go on YouTube and watch those scenes because they're pretty funny. Next, we have O Face. This is another one of those classic jokes from the movie. So they have a buddy named Drew who works at the office, and Drew comes up to him and is talking about a girl that he's trying to get with, and he says, "Things go my way, I'll be showing her my O face." You know, O, O, O. Very funny classic scene from the movie. You could also look that one up. And O face is one in a white aura. When it enters the battlefield, gain 3 life, and enchanted creature has lifelink. And then the flavor text is, "Oh, oh, oh." You know what I'm talking about. Oh. Very funny. Drew's a funny character. And he's not even a famous guy, but that scene is pretty hilarious. All right, next we have I Believe You Have My Stapler. And this is a discard spell. And Milton keeps getting his stapler stolen from him from Bill Lumberg. So I Believe You Have My Stapler is 1 black sorcery. It's a common. Choose a non-land card type. Target opponent reveals his or her hand and discards a card of the chosen type. So I haven't seen this discard effect yet, and I like it. So I'd like to see this on a common. It gives the person playing the discard a little bit more control while still not being too good, because the opponent ultimately gets to choose which one they discard if they have multiples of that permanent type. So I like it. I think it works. And the flavor text is, "But then they switched from the swing line to the Boston stapler, but I kept my swing line stapler because it didn't bind up as much." Yeah, Milton has some very unusual dialogue in the movie, and that's him talking to Peter on the phone at work. They're like 2 cubicles away, too. It's ridiculous. Next, we have Lawrence the Neighbor, played by Diedrich Bader. And he's an absolutely hilarious character in the movie, too. Lawrence the Neighbor is 2 colorless and 2 red for a 4/3 mythic human haste creature. Whenever Lawrence the Neighbor attacks, add 2 red to your mana pool at the beginning of your post-combat main phase this turn, and Lawrence the Neighbor deals 2 damage to you. So, Lawrence the Neighbor is a construction worker, which is why I wanted him to sort of give you the red mana like he's constructing things, but he has to deal damage to you because I imagined him doing maybe a little bit of shoddy work. But who knows? He might have actually done good work. Maybe it's just because he does work so fast, or just his personality type, but I see him ending up dealing damage to you when he's doing construction work for you. But yes, Lawrence is a just awesome character in the movie. Okay, next we have the Bobs, Initech Consultants. So Initech brings in a couple consultants to basically just do a bunch of firings within the office. And these 2 guys are just real pieces of work, and they're funny, but they just absolute representation of corporate, corporate lifestyle, corporate professions, jobs that people have to do for corporations to get other people fired. It's just hilarious. So the Bobs, Initech Consultants, they're 2 blue for a 2/2 legendary human advisor creature. They're rare. And then their activated ability is 3 colorless, put a fired counter on target creature that attacked or blocked or used an activated ability this turn. At the beginning of the next end step, return that creature to its owner's hand. And then the flavor text is from Bob Slidell, and it's, "What would you say you do here?" Because he ends up like talking to a bunch of the people that work there, and he finds out pretty much everybody there is worthless, which is very funny. But essentially, this card just bounces creatures that attacked, blocked, or used activated abilities at the beginning of the next end step. So I like that it's pretty versatile, but it's not overpowered. It's a little bit clunky, but it's a powerful effect. It's on a cheap creature, so I'd like to see something similar to that on a cheap blue creature, I think. And then finally we have the jump to conclusions mat. How could I skip the jump to conclusions mat? This is a 2 costing artifact, and actually the character that invents it is Tom Smykowski, who's within the he's in the offices too, but he ends up getting fired. So his idea that he mentions to Peter, Samir, and Michael is for this jump to conclusions mat, which is exactly what it sounds like it is. A mat with conclusions written on it that you can jump to. So Michael tells him it's the worst idea he's ever heard, but Tom ends up getting in a car accident that was not his fault and getting a lawsuit in his favor, and ends up actually following through with the jump to conclusions mat. So I wanted to make that into a card. It's a 2 mana artifact. It's an uncommon. And then it has 1 and tap. Choose a creature you control and flip a coin. If you win the flip, that creature gets +1/+1 and gains lifelink until end of turn. If you lose the flip, it gets -1/-0 and loses all abilities until end of turn. So not a terrible downside if you miss, and a pretty good upside if you hit. So I wanted it to be like it's a combat trick that can only work 50% of the time. So I'd like to see how the jump to conclusions mat plays. I think it actually might play fairly well. All right, well, I think that's it for this week. Hope you've been tuning in and enjoying the Holiday Cube videos. I'll have some more of that as long as the cube's around. I think we've got, I don't know, as of today, I believe we may have about a week left of Holiday Cube. So enjoy those videos, and we'll see you next week for the next Mortarpod.